They say that if you want to know the measure of a man, all you have to do is count his friends. Well, that being the case, if you want to know the measure of a brand, you simply count its fans. And in modern Star Trek's case, that would be... well, not much. See, the recent series finale of Star Trek Lower Decks included a plot point about alternate timelines and realities that most people have interpreted to mean that shows like Star Trek Discovery don't actually take place in the same continuity as classic Trek, like the original series, or the Next Generation, or God help us, even Star Trek Voyager.
Resistance is futile.
I don't doubt it.
Instead, Discovery's been relegated to the Kelvin timeline, the alternate reality spawned by the reprehensible J.J. Abrams movies. Remember when J.J. Abrams was a thing? But mostly because of a convoluted rights agreement between CBS and Paramount, who collectively presided over all things Trek at the time. But the times, they are a-changin', dear viewer, and now both CBS and Paramount are owned by Skydance Pictures, who now have the daunting task of trying to turn Star Trek into something vaguely popular and profitable again. And let's be real here, as far as challenges go, that's roughly on par with trying to climb Mount Everest using just your lips. Anyway, after a series of colossal cinematic disasters, J.J. Abrams and Bad Robot are nothing but a distant memory, and the only fly in the ointment now is his slightly retarded disciple Alex Kurtzman, who spent most of the past decade bulldozing his way through the Star Trek IP, spending money like a drunken sailor on TV shows that nobody wanted or asked for, and following this up with a series of Hail Mary vanity projects that only Alex Kurtzman could possibly care about. But don't worry, I'll come back to that one soon enough. Believe that! First though, I want to go back to the point I was making at the start of this video. The news that Star Trek Discovery seems to be getting quietly shuffled out of the hallowed halls of Star Trek canon, like a poor person trying to blag their way into an upmarket London gentleman's club. And believe me, I could tell you all about that. Now, you'd think this news might have provoked much wailing and gnashing of teeth from the passionate Discovery fanbase, and even more rejoicing from the legions of classic Trek fans that were delighted to see it removed like a cancerous tumour of creativity. Instead, the reactions online seemed to range from, shit man, I thought Discovery got cancelled years ago, to, what the hell is Star Trek Lower Decks anyway? And finally to, who even cares what they do with Star Trek now? It's dead. And really, I think that last one pretty much sums up the prevailing attitude about Star Trek at this point. Not just Discovery, but the entire brand that it's built on. Quite simply, nobody gives a shit about it anymore. Now don't get me wrong, there's plenty of old timers out there clutching their well-worn box sets of The Next Generation or reminiscing fondly about the pre-Abrams movies, but they're not exactly active anymore. They don't get involved in any of the new stuff that's being released. They don't speculate about upcoming shows or debate the merits of new captains or push for more movies. And in theory, there should be a lot for them to talk about. Last time I checked, there were no fewer than 5 different Star Trek shows that are either active right now or just recently ended. Strange New Worlds, Discovery, Lower Decks, Prodigy and Picard, plus a bunch of short Trek specials peppered in between. And that's not even mentioning the TV movie and a brand new show that's on the horizon. But you'd never know it because nobody's talking about any of them. There's no fan speculation, no debates, no anger or backlash against stuff they didn't like, nothing. The whole fan base is like this weird empty post-apocalyptic wasteland, and it's a perfect example of the final depressing stage of franchise death. Apathy. The combined creative retardation of Bad Robot and Secret Hideout has killed what was once a thriving media franchise, and more importantly, a cultural touchstone that inspired and influenced whole generations. See, you might find it hard to believe now, but Star Trek used to be kind of a big deal, and it had an impact far beyond a low-budget TV show on a bad time slot. Like, how many times have you heard someone say, beam me up, Scotty, or warp speed, or phasers on stun? How many women and people of colour were inspired to get into STEM careers because of characters like Uhura, or Geordie LaForge, or Captain Sisko? How many people became engineers because they identified with Scotty, or doctors because they looked up to McCoy, or leaders because Kirk was their childhood hero? Pick any random dude on the street, even people that have never watched a single minute of Star Trek, and there's a good chance they'll still know about Captain Kirk, or Mr. Spock, or the Starship Enterprise. Steve Wozniak was motivated to get into electrical engineering and eventually co-founded Apple because the science of Star Trek fascinated him. Even George Lucas admitted that Star Trek influenced his work on A New Hope. That right there is the true legacy of classic Star Trek, a cultural footprint so massive that it spanned decades and influenced entire generations. Now fast forward to today and have a little think about the influence of modern Star Trek. Tell me, how many people do you think have heard of Michael Burnham, or Spore Drives, or Section 31? How many people could even name a single Star Trek show that's come out in the past 10 years? That's the legacy of modern Star Trek right there. Irrelevancy. Nothing but a bunch of obscure TV shows on a failed streaming service that nobody watches or even talks about. And yet for some reason, they just keep blowing absurd amounts of money to shit out more and more of this crap. Out of everything they've made, Picard generated a tiny flare of interest in season 3 when they finally handed the show off to someone who actually cared about it, but even that was nothing more than blowing on the cold ashes of a dying fire, and it was a nostalgia card that could only be played once. Strange New Worlds, which I'm told was halfway decent in season 1 before falling off a cliff in season 2, is now well into its 3rd season, with a 4th already in production for next year, and nobody talks about it. Starfleet Academy is another spin-off from Discovery that nobody asked for, set 1,000 years in the future because why the hell not, I guess, starring the usual collection of checkboxes that substitute identity for personality, and probably involving a lot of tearful cadets talking about their feelings in hallways. Oh, and Alex Kurtzman finally got his long-cherished wish for a Section 31 spin-off starring Michelle Yeoh, which comes out at the end of this month. Yeah, it's a streaming movie rather than the epic multi-season show that he probably wanted, but you can bet your left arse cheek that it still came with a hefty price tag. Especially Yeoh herself, who I have it on good authority is being paid $12 million for her part in this one.
Oh man! Oh god! Oh man!
Now, I like Michelle Yeoh as much as the next guy, but there's no way on this earth you're going to convince me that she's worth $12 million for any production, especially not one that's direct to streaming. Damn man, that woman must have been laughing all the way to the bank after her first meeting with Alex Kurtzman. And that's the thing, you can throw all the money you want at a problem, you can release project after project to create the superficial appearance of a healthy brand, you can even hide your viewing figures behind the trusty old streaming service defensive wall. But the one thing you can't do is generate actual interest and cultural impact. That's the thing that Star Trek lost a long time ago, and it's not going to be coming back anytime soon unless something radically changes at Paramount, preferably starting with firing a whole bunch of people. This is how Star Trek died, to thunderous apathy. Anyway, that's all I've got for today. Go away now.